Welcome to Love Liaisons, the ultimate deep dive into the highs and lows and hilarities of modern relationships. I am Kathryn.
And I'm Marina, and we'll be your love liaisons. So have a sip of wine.
Or a hot cup of tea, and let's dive in. So, today we are going to talk about questions that you may be forgetting to ask on a date and why these are important and not too evasive. Marina, I'm just going to start this off, okay, if you don't mind. So,
Yeah, what do you tell us? What do you like to ask people, like on a first date or something like that? What's important that sometimes people miss? Because
mhm.
usually they just kind of like, what do you like? What do you like to do? How many, how many siblings do you have? All those boring things. What do you like to ask?
So I'm taking it in a different way because some people will say, well, what do you do for work? And I literally had a guy say, I hate that question. And I'm thinking, but you do this, what, 40 to 80 hours a week potentially? That's
Hmm.
a valid question. So I think a really great question to ask is basically, if you could have $100,000, how would you take a vacation? And I'm going to explain why this is a great question. You learn a lot about the person. If somebody says that I would go camping under the stars and hike all day, that shows one set of values, right? If another person says, well, I want to go to a resort and lay on the beach all day and drink Mai Tais, there's a bit of a disconnect, and maybe potentially they shouldn't date one another. They just value different things. Um, or I would say another question would be if you found out tomorrow, like got sponsored money or an inheritance where you technically wouldn't have to work, would you still work or would you do something else? And the reason why this question is so important is it tells you where they are in their life, okay? Where they're going, where they're in their life. Would they continue working for money to financially support themselves? Or is it going to be for the love of it? So it tells you really a lot about the person. And it's not an evasive question like asking, what is your credit score? Or how much money do you make? I mean, it's just a better way to go about it. I have more, but Marina, hop in. What do you think about that? And what would some of your questions be?
Yeah, well, before I actually get to a first date, I've already talked to the person on the phone. We've messaged, we've talked on the phone, maybe we've even FaceTimed. So, a lot of these things, the ones that you're saying are really creative and interesting, but a lot of like the basic kind of things I may have already asked. One of the things that I really want to get to know is what does their life look like these days outside of work? And how do they like to spend their free time, especially weekends or whatever their schedule is like, is really kind of get a sense of what their day to day life is and really assess the compatibility of their lifestyle. Because, I'm a single mom, and when I have my son, I really spend a lot of time with them. So I really want to know, are they kid friendly? And I would have already known if they have
Mhm.
kids or what's going on, but really get a sense of their lifestyle and their lifestyle outside of work. Because, yeah, I mean, I'm not
So
dating anybody for work.
you would ask that, what is your lifestyle outside of work?
Yeah, like what does your life look like outside of work? And people say different things like, how do they spend their time? What do they do? Are they spending their time with their kids, with their friends, with their hobbies?
Mhm.
Are they are they like a sports parent? Are they kind of like me?
Like you.
Thinking, yeah. Do they have a hobby? Are they spending all their time golfing? And I mean, these are things that you sometimes even figure out when trying to plan the date because a date could take anywhere from an hour to a couple of hours. So, like, how are they squeezing you in to
Squeeze.
yeah, how are they squeezing you in to their schedule, I mean, that's
They
really what
better
it is, like, how are they
squeeze me
squeezing you
in.
in?
Do a little squeeze, squeeze.
Yeah.
I think that another really good question would be, I just love these type of questions, but if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be? And the reason why this is such a great question is because it reveals core values, desired lifestyle, emotional priorities. So, do they prioritize their career, nature, community, comfort. So it's going to distinguish between, are they looking for something luxurious, lifestyle, or prioritizing peace and family? So if someone says, I want to live in Manhattan, which is a very expensive place to live, I would want to know why. If they say, well, because my kids live there, okay, then that immediately tells you he's a family person. So that means you don't have to ask how important is family. When you ask them where they want to live, you're going to learn a lot. And also, if it's a connection, if they want to live in a place, some deserted farmland, and you don't even like to milk cows, that might be a red flag.
Yeah. That's definitely something important to know. It gets to this lifestyle. And that's actually really important as people don't really get that. It's the day to day life that you're living with somebody. If you're interested in having a serious, intimate, romantic relationship, the kind where you're cohabitating, maybe you'll get married or maybe you'll just live together. It's really like that day to day.
Mhm.
And I think that's really important. When I think about people that I've really gotten along with, it has been that day to day. Like we wake up, we do like the same kind of yoga, we go for a walk, we have like a healthy breakfast or something. Like it's really that lifestyle that is important. So kind of getting a sense of that. But
Mhm.
one thing I really like to ask that I think is a unique question, because I get really raised eyebrows, and I like to ask it in person is I date men.
You date men? That's good to know.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm primarily heterosexual, so I'm looking for a heterosexual monogamish or monogamous relationship. And I do ask men, have they had a same-sex relationship? Or,
Mm. Mm.
have they ever had like a same-sex encounter or relationship? And I do get a couple of raised eyebrows, but let me tell you, in my whole life, I've had 2 men that have said yes, and I wouldn't have known that. And it's just something that I wanna know, like,
Why? Why do you need to know that? Why do you think that would be an important question for people to ask?
for me, it's important to know sort of the range of people's sexuality, and are they
Are they a
primarily
little freaky? No.
necessarily I don't think that's necessarily freaky, but are they primarily straight? Is their sexual preference on a spectrum, which I believe that it is for people, but what end of the spectrum is that? And
Mhm.
along with that, I also like to ask people like, are they primarily monogamous or are they non-monogamous? Because
I think that is great because it's already hard enough when you're wondering, okay, now I have all these other women that they're interested in. Now I have to think about, well, they're also interested in men. That's just too much. Like, no, we need to keep it a little bit more simple. I mean, I know there's people out there that have all different preferences, but relationships are enough work. So I get you.
yeah, yeah. So it's interesting to know. And yeah, especially with the non-monogamy, like that's just not monogamy is not a given nowadays. I've had situations where I was dating somebody for quite a while, only to come and find out that this person is non-monogamous. The ethical part fell off. He just thought it was assumed, but yeah, how am I supposed to assume that? Like, he never got jealous about me. I'm like, "Oh,
Of
well,
course not.
of course not, of course not." He's, like, living half the time with this French girl that
He's
I
in
didn't know
fantasy
about.
land. Yeah, yeah, no, I don't wish to be on fantasy land. I wanna be dealing with reality with my tea, and yeah, just yeah, I'm yeah, no, mm-mm. Okay.
Well,
I hope you all think these are great questions. Please give us feedback because if you have a funny story or if you use these questions, I really would love to know the responses you got and if they thought they were really meaningful questions or not. I'm going to take a sip of my tea. I don't know what you're doing.
I know it's happy hour again. It's always happy hour somewhere, so I'm gonna have another sip of my wine, and, cheers for now.
From your Love Liaisons.